Hi and welcome back. If you'd like to know the real story about owning a Tesla for 5 years and 70,000 miles, you've come to the right place. I ordered this Tesla on April 1st, 2016, and I picked it up 931 days later, September 18th, 2018. And so I'm getting ready to celebrate the 5th birthday and thought I would share some insights with you. You got to understand, I'm not a car guy. When I was growing up, I had friends who had fast cars and loud mufflers, and yeah, it was fine, but it was never something that I really enjoyed. To me, an automobile is something to get me from point A to point B. And I had a lot of questions in the beginning, and so hopefully this video will answer a lot of those questions for you. By the way, if you are considering the purchase or a demo drive of a new Tesla, at the end of stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to put a referral code that you can get some perks and a pretty good, decent discount if you decide to use it. So, all right, now on with the info. There's a lot of misinformation out there that's being repeated and repeated and repeated by people who don't know any better. And so this video hopefully will inform people so that they are not continuing to put out these in some cases, hilarious rumors. All right, let's get started. All right, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the pros and the cons. Most people's questions tend to center around these major points that I'm going to cover. Number one, how long do the batteries last? What is my real range after 5 years? How well has the car held together after 5 years and almost 70,000 miles? What about reliability? Have I ever been left in the lurch? The cost of maintenance? Where do I charge? And can I take long trips? Does the car really drive itself? Do I miss having that instrument cluster on the dashboard? Have I ever run out of fuel? And what are the 5-year overall ownership costs of a Tesla or an EV versus a regular internal combustion engine? Is it fast? Is it quick? Do I miss the dealership business model? Then we'll cover some of the negatives and we'll go over some of my favorite things, okay? But for now, let's go ahead and just get started. How long do the batteries last? Well, there's rumors out there that say that the batteries need to be replaced every 5 years. Well, that's pure rubbish. And if this weren't a family channel, I might use a different word. But after 5 years and roughly 68,000 miles, I still have about 92% of my original battery capacity. That means I've lost about 8%, and I'm not surprised as that's in line with most projections. Here, I'm going to put up a screenshot of my warranty page from my Tesla app, and it provides that it proves that the batteries are warranted for 8 years, or 120,000 miles. But I really believe they're going to go well beyond that. At this point, I have no question that the batteries will last at least 400 to 500,000 miles. I never had a car that I've really kept even that long, so I have no concerns whatsoever about the batteries, okay? Number two, what's my real range after 5 years, okay? Again, about 92%. When I first got the car, it was rated at a 300-mile range, and now I can get about 275 on a full charge on a nice warm day. And I say a nice warm day because in my negatives, we're going to cover the drop-off when it gets cold, okay? Has the car held together after 5 years and almost 70,000 miles. Well, I got to say, it's been wonderful. It still feels like a new car. It drives like a new car. I don't have any squeaks or squawks or things like that. That sound you might hear in the background is my office chair that I've had for less than 5 years, and it's squeaking, okay? And the automatic updates, the over-the-air updates that are provided by Tesla and many manufacturers of other electric vehicles, it adds new capabilities, it adds new features. And so, I mean, there's times when I get in after a software update, it's like, all right, man, this is like a new car again. Reliability, unfailing reliability. I have never been stranded. It's never been not functional. Never anything like that. Cost of maintenance. Now, this is a major high point because you have no oil changes, no belts, no hoses, no oil, no gas. In fact, I wrote a song about it. It's on my, if you go to my YouTube channel, wait, you're on my YouTube channel. I wrote a song. It's called the EV Song. Look, check it out. It's kind of fun. And also there's regenerative braking, okay? Regenerative braking uses your forward motion and uses kind of a generator, and it returns some of the electricity back to recharge the battery. So bottom line with that is there is very little wear on the brake pads. I can't remember the last time I really used my brakes. Another question I get a lot is, well, where do I charge? And can I take long road trips? Well, personally, I do most of my charging at home, in my garage, overnight while I sleep. Probably about 95 to 98% of my charging is done that way. On the rare occasion, when I travel several hundred miles in a day, I use the Tesla Supercharger system, which now has over 50,000 locations across the U.S., and you can check those out at tesla.com/charging for more information about what's available close to you. Another advantage to that is when you charge overnight, you always have a full battery, or I charge to 80%. But you don't have to sit in lines at gas stations. You don't have to worry about it raining or snowing when you go to the gas station. Way I figured it, I've probably saved over 5 years about 180 or more trips to the gas station, which is not my favorite thing. So that's a cool thing. Another question I get a lot, does the car really drive itself? Well, yes and no. You know, I'm too much of a control freak to give up total control. And even using the feature that they call full self-driving, you still have to monitor and be ready to take over at any time. Number one, it's in beta, but you know, it's kind of like riding with a very cautious student driver. Most of the time, they do things perfectly, but you need to be vigilant in case they do something unexpected. But having said that, it is very, very helpful keeping the car in the lane, maintaining speed, accounting for other vehicles' activities, and doing all those little tasks that we really don't even think about. But, you know, we're making micro decisions all the time, whether to turn the wheel this way or turn the wheel that way because the road turns this way or twists that way, or maybe there's a wind, a crosswind. I have noticed a lot less fatigue after driving for several hours on long road trips. I just arrive fresher because the brain isn't making all these little micro decisions. Another big question is, do I miss the instrument cluster? You know, the dashboard that you're probably used to on your car. Well, at first, I got to say it was odd, but now it's just second nature. With the big screen in the center, you're not looking directly at a speedometer or an odometer or any gauges or anything. Your screen's kind of off to your side, and so you're looking straight out of the windshield into the rest of the traffic and all that other stuff. But you'll get used to it, or at least I did, and everybody that I know has. But now, see, it's all of what you get used to. Now I get in to drive my wife's SUV, as I do occasionally, to pick up something from the hardware store or whatever. But I'm initially confused by all the dials and the readouts and everything. But after a little while, I get used to those too. But I got to tell you, the big center screen is fantastic for route guidance and most common commands. The voice command capability is also fantastic. I can get in, I can hit the button and say, drive to Lifetime Fitness in Lenexa, and it plans the best route based on current traffic and lays it out on a map for me. Kind of like Google Maps, but a little more elegant than that. Or I could be driving along and say, I'm cold, and the HVAC system will turn the temperature up 3 degrees. And there's dozens and dozens of voice commands available. I won't go through all of them here. But you could just Google sometime voice commands for a Tesla, and I think you'll be pleasantly amazed. Another big question that I've gotten is, have I ever run out of fuel? Nope, I have never run out of charge. Now, I've come close a couple of times, but the car is extremely good at judging your range that you have remaining based on your current driving habits, the weather conditions, the state of charge. It even shows you where you could charge if you pull up that map right there on your screen. You do have to pre-plan just a little bit, you know. You have to know you're going to need a full charge if you know you're going to drive 250 miles tomorrow. But again, it's all in pre-planning. Okay, so here's the big one. Here's the big one right here. Cost. Out-of-pocket expenses. So I call this 5-year overall ownership costs. All right? And this is absolutely the best part for this old frugal German like me. So I'm going to put up a spreadsheet here, and it's going to have a lot of information, but don't worry, I'll leave it up for a long time, and I'll go through each item one at a time, and I'll explain and I'll validate the figures and the calculations, and feel free to rewind and go through it several times, and you'll see that I was pretty meticulous in all of my assumptions and research in putting this together. I'll also post all these screenshots on my Facebook page, so if you want to examine them more closely, I'll put a link in the description below. And by the way, I would ask if you get any benefit or information. If you find this video to be of benefit, please give me a thumbs up like or a comment or question down below. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I do stuff like this on a regular basis, and music and stuff like that too. So, all right, let's take a dive into these costs, and I'm going to explain the top 1/3 of this spreadsheet. Then the rest of it will make sense, I believe. Okay, so this is a comparison right now, and you'll see the little asterisks on new car cost and resale value. These I did a Google search on September 9th of 2023 to get these figures. The backing documents for this I will post on my Facebook page if you want to look them up, or you can just look it up yourself if you'd like. Okay, so a new car cost in September of 2018 for my Tesla Model 3, a BMW 330i xDrive. By the way, my Model 3 is all-wheel drive, xDrive on the BMW, and then also a Toyota Camry, which is a pretty popular car. And again, I picked the higher cost trim package, although I'm not necessarily saying it's as good of a car or not as the others. These are about, I thought, 3 comparable vehicles. You can agree or disagree or look up your own. But that's what I chose anyway. I can't compare them all. And then also a Google search on resale value as of September 23rd, 68,000 miles. And you'll see the figures there for each of those cars. And then line 4 is a comparison, simply what I spent versus what I could get for it at this particular moment in time. And so the difference between those is what I call pure cost just to own the vehicle. And you'll see that, you'll see those figures right there. In the next section, I am adding now costs of oil changes every 6,000 miles. And I'm figuring about $80 for an oil change. That might be a little low. You could use $100, but I'm trying to be conservative on these figures. 11 oil changes over that period of time, average of 6,000 miles, 11 times. So for $880 on both of the internal combustion engine cars. The next line, other maintenance, hoses and belts and dealer cost for this and fluids and things like that. Nothing for my Tesla. And $1,500 I just figured as a rough guesstimate on both the internal combustion. You could take those off if you want. It's still going to come out about the same. All right, and then the biggie here is fuel. All right, I'm assuming 25 miles per gallon and $3.25 per gallon for regular gas for the internal combustions. And I'll show the calculations below when I show the entire spreadsheet. But as you can see, for my car, I have spent $2,040 over this period of time because I'm paying, well, you'll see what I'm paying, but it's basically 12 cents per kilowatt hour. The BMW, I suspect, might need premium gas, which would be more expensive. And I also assume it might only get 25 miles per gallon rather than 30. I should have said 30 miles per gallon on the Toyota Camry. But you could, again, do your own figures for your own car, how much you paying for gas, and what's your miles per gallon. I can't assume any repairs needed. I certainly have not had any on my Tesla, and so I will assume that there are no repairs necessary for the automobile that you would choose. You can plug in a figure there if you'd like. All right, so the bottom line here, or the semi-bottom line, line 10, cost to own and operate over the period. So I took the pure cost to own, line 4, and then added those other things in those columns. So you can see that a Tesla Model 3 and many EVs are going to be less expensive to own and operate over the long period. And I'm coming back to the fact that you do not have to replace the batteries. That's what everybody talks about. You got to replace the batteries. You got to replace the batteries. Well, you really don't. Now, in the next portion, we kind of figure some other factors, okay? So these can be, I don't know if you want to call them negatives, but they're just the way of life. Efficiency decline over a certain period of time. Again, this came from a Google search that internal combustion engine vehicles over a 10-year period of time tend to lose 25 to 30% efficiency over a period of 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 miles. And I'm figuring 10% on my batteries. I'm close to that right now after 5 years, but I think that's pretty true, the 10% guess. And I put in there, with total transparency, you lose more when it's cold. But again, for bopping around town, it's not a real problem. Fueling convenience, to me, this is a big one, With my electric car at home, I'm plugging it in every night. it's charging while I'm sleeping and I'm comfy in my own bed. Although I do spend some money outside charging, and supercharging electricity is a little higher because they're always paying peak. But again, it's a small difference, and even then you're way ahead of the game. And obviously with the internal combustion engines, you have to stop at the gas station. And sure, we need to do that now and then for other reasons, but you got to sometimes wait in line, and it's always a hassle. With an electric car, you do need to pre-plan your long trips, that's for sure. On the plus side, for an ICE, you can find a gas station anywhere just about. Very seldom can you ever run out of gas if you're thinking. Okay, so now this is the full spreadsheet showing all the things that you've seen before, and showing the calculations that I have used for the fuel consumption cost earlier. For my car, it uses about 250 watts per mile, which is 1/4 of a kilowatt, which is 1,000 miles. My cost per kilowatt hour here at my home right now is about 12 cents. I could get a better rate by doing a time of day charge, and I'm thinking about switching, but this is the real figures. I've been paying 12 cents for the past 5 years, roughly. So my fuel cost is about $2,000, $2,040. If we look at an internal combustion engine vehicle, which has driven 68,000 miles and gets an MPG of 30, okay, so I guess I did use 30 in those previous figures. Okay, so I'm using 2,266 gallons at an average cost of $3.25. Later, recently it's been a lot higher, but there's been times when it's, anywhere between $3 and $3.50, sometimes more. Anyway, fuel cost roughly is $7,366. So that's the comparison that I am using. These are the figures and the calculations that I am using, and I think you'll agree that I have been conservative and certainly fair on all of these. Again, questions, comments, put them in the box below. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Next question. Is it fast and quick? Yeah, it's very fast and it's very quick. I'm not a speed racer kind of a guy, but there's been a few times when the instant acceleration quickness has kept me out of an accident. And man, it's really fun. It's a fun car to drive. Do I miss the car dealership model by just buying a car online? Well, let me say I have friends in the automobile business, and I believe that they do provide a great service to the car buying public. But, I feel good about knowing that the price that I paid for my car is the exact same price everyone else paid for their car on a particular day. I have found Tesla to be very transparent, very convenient, and very consistent. The service center has always been 5 stars, and most service can be done at your home or work location by using the Tesla's mobile service team. It's a very reasonable cost, and believe me, I'm cheap/frugal enough that I'm not going to pay hardly anything extra. But if they're willing to come to my place to do it and charge me the same amount, hey, I'm good with that, Okay, so now let's go through some negatives, all right? Because there's always the other side of the coin. All right, number one, you're going to have an upfront cost of a few $100s to run, if you don't already have a 220 or 240 volt outlet into your garage to be able to charge your vehicle. You can charge it in 110, but it takes a very, very long time. Have an electrician come out, run 220 to a plug-in, install a plug-in in your garage, and that's what I've been using the past 5 years, as I say, 98% of the time. At the time, it cost me about $500. You'll have to check with some local electricians in your area. And by the way, if you get to the end of this video and you see my referral code, Tesla is right now offering, with a referral code, a $500 discount on their car, plus some free self-driving months. And that'll pretty much offset that. So a word of caution, make sure that you use the referral code at the time that you are purchasing the car, because you can't go back later and say, oh, wait, I meant to include that, because that doesn't happen. So other negatives, well, I don't know if that was a negative, but it's a cost factor, something you need to consider. Some other negatives, it's a heavy car. Those batteries are heavy, okay, and it's a little harder on tires than probably your normal family sedan. But it's also so much fun to drive. And so sometimes we get on it a little bit more than I would in the family sedan. Bottom line is tires aren't going to last you quite as long. Yeah, you know, instead of 30 or 35,000 miles on a set of tires, I'm getting 25,000, 28,000, something like that. The trunk and the frunk in my 2018 model will occasionally let some water in if you open them kind of after like a heavy rain or after the car wash or whatever. The channels don't quite channel the rain away. So that's a small negative. The cabin filters need to be replaced every few years. It's got a really, really good filtering system to filter outside air. But it's so good that sometimes it gets a little stagnant. So, you know, every 2 or 3 years, you got to spend $50 to have it replaced. Or you could do it yourself for about $30. Again, not a problem, just a small expense. On my car, the interior of a 2018 Model 3 had a really shiny piano black finish on it, kind of like these shiny pianos, you know, baby grand pianos. And sometimes the lights, the sunlight would reflect into my eyes. And so I did a little modification on the inside to cover that in white. New cars have a matte finish, so you needn't worry if you're buying a new one. And I have sensitive eyes, so I definitely suggest tinting the windows and putting what they call an eyebrow on the windshield. It makes the car, A, more comfortable in the summer, B, it looks a lot cooler if you see one with tinted windows as opposed to non-tinted windows. The eyebrow on the windshield is simply 2 or 3 inches of tinting across the top of the windshield. But the car has just a beautiful glass roof on it that lets a lot of sunlight in. You always feel like you're almost driving a convertible all the time. It's really, really cool. But I'm sorry, back to the negatives. When it gets really cold, I'm talking about, you know, sub-freezing temperatures, you will lose some range. Just like if you take your flashlight out in the wintertime, you know those batteries aren't going to last as long. That's just the chemical makeup of the batteries. So you could lose up to 25% approximately of your range. So, you know, if you're just driving around town, it's no biggie. Just plan on it. If you're going to be making some long trips, factor that in. But again, I live in the Kansas City metropolitan area. I used to travel regularly to Wichita, Kansas, to Salina, Kansas, to Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, Missouri, Columbia, Missouri, St. Louis, and I've never had a difficulty with range. A few of my favorite points is, number one, the home charging versus the gasoline experience. Not just the amount of money that I've saved on gasoline, and every time I drive past the gas pump and I see the price, I don't have to cry anymore. But also the amount of time that I've saved not having to wait in line at Costco to get their gas, or pulling into a gas station, and just the amount of time and the hassle. I really enjoy not going there. Waking up in the morning, having a fresh charge, and being ready to roll. I also really like the keyless entry system. Your phone becomes your car key, okay? So you got to keep your phone with you, but most of us do that anyway. You could set the car that when you walk away from it, it automatically locks. And when you approach it, it automatically unlocks for you. If you're in a place, a restaurant or a gym or whatever, and it's really hot outside, it has an app you can click on to turn on the air conditioning so that it's cooled off by the time you get to your car. You could roll the windows, you could vent the windows, roll them down a little bit. Or if you've left them up, if you've left them down, you can always roll them up. And it sends you these little reminders as well. If it's in the middle of winter and it's really cold, you could turn on the heater in the car and it'll warm up before you come out. So that's really cool too. Over-the-air updates I mentioned earlier, they keep the car updated with new features and improvements. I really like the Sentry mode. The car has, I believe it's either 5 or 7 cameras built into it that if somebody, it has motion sensors, so if somebody comes near your car or whatever, it will like wake up and it'll take video of things. And so, or while you're driving, it's always on. So in case there's ever an accident, you have video to prove it wasn't your fault. If it's parked and if there's any nefarious activity around there, you have that on camera too. So, and you can view it through the app, or you can download it and do it that way. And again, as I mentioned, the glass roof is really cool. It's very, very spacious. So, in closing, as I mentioned, at the beginning, I've never been a car guy. I've never had a fancy car. I grew up with Fords and Plymouths and Chevys and VWs and Toyotas and Nissans, which used to be called Datsuns, for those of you who are my age. So cars have always been purely functional to me. I've never really gotten excited about a car, but I got to tell you, I love this car. 5 years later, and I love this car. I'm really jazzed about it. And if you've ever met another Tesla owner, you know how they feel exactly the same way. Feel free to ask questions or leave a comment in the box below, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Now, as I mentioned, here is my referral code. At the time I'm making this video, this code will get you a $500 discount plus 3 months of full self-driving capability software package when you use it at the time of ordering at Tesla. You can also use it when you book a demo drive. And yeah, I get a small incentive as well. But the real incentive is not burning up all the gasoline, and so my grandkids have some air to breathe. But again, a word of caution, you can't come back later to claim it if you forget. So make sure you do it at the time of order or you lose it. So I'm going to put that here on the screen right now. I'll also put it in the comment, in the information box below. Have a good time. Please comment. Let me know if you get one or what you think or any questions that you might have that I haven't thought about. And enjoy. Thanks.